Hey guys, welcome to Cozy Talks Live. We're going to get this evening started. I have one of my favorite decaf coffees here because, man, I needed this one for tonight. All right, guys, for those of you watching the replay, give me a shout out. Let me know you're in the comment section. Just shout replay. And if you are watching the replay and you have any questions for me, please feel free to put them in there. I do go back after the show is closed down to answer any of those questions as well. But for now, let's go start. Say hi to the people who are here live in person. Starting off with Scott with his cold water, as always, in West Virginia. We've got Marianne eating Dairy Queen ice cream. Oh, Marianne, please tell me you are having a dip cone. There is nothing more classic Dairy Queen than a chocolate dip cone. And that was like probably one of my favorite treats as a kid right there. Emily is saying hi from Central PA with Crystal Light Fruit Punch in her cup this evening. Chuck is in Wyoming traveling tonight. Chuck, where are you traveling to? Inquiring minds want to know. Mark coming in from Colorado Springs with Just Water. Mark, I can't wait for one of your questions. I didn't get an email from you this week. I'm a little sad. You know, you've been sending me some really great, thoughtful questions, so I want to hear more. We got Robert coming in from Georgia with coffee in his cup. Cheers to you, Robert. We've got another Chuck coming in saying his neuromas are really bugging me today. Feels like twisting my knee off. Surgery is Monday. Nice to see you tonight. Chuck, I wish you the best of luck with that surgery. Truly hope that can help with what you're feeling and going through right now. We've got Jim from Ohio. Jim, I've got your question right here. It is one of our feature questions for tonight. Dean coming from Hollywood, Florida with peach mango green iced tea in your cup. Dean, I am so glad you stayed up a little bit past your bedtime to come be with us this evening. Johnny V from Poughkeepsie, New York in the Cozy Talks house. Johnny, it's been a while since I've been able to do your intro. I miss the swagger, man. I miss the swagger. I'm glad you're here. We got Daniel Waters coming in. We got Marty from Texas drinking Vicinity Pineapple Sparkling Water. I've never even heard of half the drinks you guys bring on this show, and I love it. This is pretty cool. I've got decaf coffee. No flavors, nothing, but it's darn good. Ashley with her sweet tea. Oh, Ashley, I've got a lot of my old OG listeners and viewers here tonight. So we got Johnny V, we got Ashley coming in this house. So guys, it's good to see some of the OG folks coming back in to listen and pop in. We got Pam coming in from upstate New York. Let's say hello to our Instagram friends. We have not said hello to our Instagram friends. We've got Monique on board. We also have Chuck listening there. We got Cindy on board. We got Nana Chacon as well. I love these handles. Nana asks, I don't know that I'll ever get off my walker being 65 with MS. I'm okay with that, though, if it keeps me from falling. I am an OI patient from Mayo with Dr. Weiss and Steve Pompilio. Nana, you are in the best of hands. Let me tell you, between Doc Howie and Steve Pompilio, it's like Abbott and Costello with those two, but you could not be in better hands. Truly. I've gotten to know Steve and Howie. Steve and Dr. Weiss. I got to meet them both at Empower Fest a year ago, and I'm hooked. I'm totally hooked. Dr. Howie Weiss is a PM&R physician, guys, and you guys have heard me talk about PM&R doctors on the show and the value that they bring to amputee care as well as spinal cord injury care and a lot of these specialty disability diagnoses, right? Doc Howie Weiss embodies everything that a PM&R doctor should be. And then his sidekick, and it really shouldn't be calling him a sidekick, it's his in command person there is Steve Pompilio, who's probably one of if I had to name the top 5 physical therapists in my career that I've ever met, he makes that list hands down. And on top of being an absolutely brilliant clinician, he's just an incredible human being right there. So Nana, you could not be in better hands. And I completely agree with your statement that you're saying, you don't know that you're going to be able to realistically ever get off your walker because of your diagnosis, and it keeps you from falling. And this is something that we've covered several times on the show, that using a walker, using a cane, using a wheelchair is not a failure. It is not a failure. It is a tool that can give you independence. Okay. And that's the mindset that I see so many people become successful with. Okay. So props to you, Nana. Thank you so much for sharing this on the show. And again, you got some wonderful human beings taking care of you. Monique says, I'm not using a walker any longer. I'm an AK looking for tips to get off my crutch, cane, and trusting my leg. Monique, you came to the right place because that is one of the top questions we are answering this evening. We've got Woody Michelle. We got a lot of folks on Instagram on board, and I'm loving this. We got Cindy coming in from New York. There's my Tar Heel right there with her question as well. Monique is coming in from Wichita. Woody says, hi from Paw Paw, Michigan, drinking ice water. Let me tell you what, I love Michigan. I love Michigan. My husband's family has a large portion from Traverse City, and I absolutely love that place. We got Chuck Taylor on board as well. Can I say that? We got Chuck Taylor on board? That's kind of cool. Rick on board as well. So guys on my Instagram channel, don't be shy. Usually y'all are a little on the quiet side, so I love hearing from you. We got Tom on board, Benny. Man, we got a full house. We got Janie coming in from Canada. Tom, you got another Canadian there on board. Steve coming in with from New York with his water. We got Benny on board. There's my Marine right there. Huya. We've got Comadre on board. Comadre, it's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've seen you on the show. I tell the girls that I miss seeing them on the show as well. I'm so glad you're here. We got Donna from Wyoming drinking her coffee. We've got Swest, Stephen from California. He just has water. Happy to have you guys here. All right. We got Linda. Whew. All right. I think we said all our hellos. Benny is running the 5K in New York City this Sunday. Man, Benny, you are a beast. You are a beast. Every time you come on the show, you're either running some sort of race or you are volunteering at a pediatric event or doing something incredible. So love having you here. Like I said, tonight is kind of like a reunion of my OG viewers. I've got Benny, I've got Johnny V, I've got Ashley on board. So guys, thank you for coming in. Let's get this show officially started, shall we? For my newcomers, for those of you wondering who is this wacky lady on your screen, welcome. My name is Cosi Belloso. I'm a physical therapist here in hot, still sticky, still humid Tampa, Florida. Yes, and I'm saying that through gritted teeth and my hot coffee in hand. I've been a PT now for a little over 23 years, and my passion is working with the amputee community. So that includes those of you who are amputees, the clinicians that work with you, and your caregivers and family members. And we've got great questions tonight. And guys, I did not plan it this way. The questions tonight all coordinate and play in with each other. Didn't plan this. So let's get started with the headliner question. So Jim sent me a nice message and says, I'm pretty close to walking without the assistance of a walker. However, I am still struggling with getting my weight transferred to the prosthetic. I've worked on balance both through my physical therapist and your book, and both have really helped me out. Still, I have to actively concentrate on shifting weight to the prosthesis, and I know I shouldn't have to think about it. Any advice that would help is appreciated. Jim in Ohio. Okay, so Jim, the one thing you didn't tell me is how long have you been working with your physical therapist? Can you put that into the comment section for me, please? Hey, we've got 19, Pop 19. Now I know what the X1X stands for. 19 from Long Island, New York coming on board. All right, so guys, the holy grail that you chase when you start learning how to use a prosthesis, it's learning to trust the prosthesis, right? It's really like, folks, it's one of those if you know kind of thing, right? For folks who do not have an amputation and use a prosthesis, they just think, okay, you put the leg on, it's going to move right under you. And it really doesn't work that way, right? You have to relearn and trust this prosthesis. How do you learn to trust the prosthesis? The number one thing, okay, is about proprioception and training your sense of proprioception. Now, if you're one of my OG viewers, right, that you've been watching the show for 8 years, you can spit out the definition of proprioception just as easily as I can, right? For those of you who've never heard of that terminology, proprioception is your body's ability to know where it is in space, right? So if you close your eyes and I tell you, give me a thumbs up, you can do this without looking, okay? That is probably the most critical part when you lose your limb. Okay, you put a prosthesis on, your brain doesn't recognize that prosthesis as its own and doesn't know where it is in space. So when you swing that leg out, it's kind of a crapshoot as to where that foot is going to land, much less if it's going to support you, right? And all of that is just kind of scrambling your brain, sending it into a tizzy and making you quite reasonably anxious about trusting that prosthesis, right? So one of the first things we do in physical therapy is we get you trusting that prosthesis and putting weight into it. So Jim, you've been doing physical therapy now for 9 months. Okay, so guys, Jim, when he was talking about the book, this is the book I wrote, and this is the program. And I am going to throw up the QR code there because many of you have been using this program. Many of you, okay, would benefit from this program, not just for your own personal fitness, but also to take it to your physical therapy appointments, okay? Many of you have also noticed there's not a lot of physical therapists like me that have a specialty working with amputees. Many do not have that specialty. However, if they have a book like this gives a lot of guidelines and a lot of the exercises. So a lot of the early proprioceptive exercises are located in here. Okay. Those of you who have this book, if you go to your balance section, and this is the above the knee book. I have an above the knee book and I have a book for below the knee amputees. You start here. Okay. And Jim, here's one thing I'm going to tell you. And again, I don't know what exactly the plan of care has been with your physical therapist, but this is what I do. When I have someone who's been working, and, you know, like yourself, 9 months into the process, and they're still having a hard time letting go, I bring them back to the basics. Because what I find a lot of times is that folks will skip the foundational basics. Okay. And then you have gaps in the foundation. So you might have the ability to start walking longer distances with your walker, but then when it comes time to letting go of that walker, okay, you still don't quite have that trust in there. Okay, so sometimes you need to take it back to here, to the square up method. Okay, so Jim, if you go to your book, right, you're in above the knee, so you have the above the knee book. This is the phase 1 balance. It's page 79. And I take you in step. So you start up with the, sorry, I'm trying to look at this backwards. Square up. The next exercise is the weight shifting side to side. Okay. Then you have forward and backward weight shifting. Then you have diagonal weight shifting. Okay. So I take you through those steps. Okay. The first foundational steps. There's one more key exercise, and I'm giving you guys like a ton of pearls here. I'm giving you guys a ton of pearls. Let me find the one exercise. Sorry, it takes me a minute because there's like 150 exercises, guys. I'm not kidding. Here we go. This exercise right here. If I had to pick one exercise that tells me if a person is, one of my patients is ready to start walking with a cane or walking without the cane to finally let go of the cane, it's this one right here. It's this one. Now I'm going to put it a little bit closer and hopefully you guys can see. So what my model here is doing, okay, she's got her prosthesis on the ground, okay, and then she steps up with the sound limb. Do you see that? Can you guys see that, by the way? Can you guys in the comments section just tell me if you're able to see this? Because I know this is like not ideal right now with how I'm putting this in here. Okay. Is this visible for you guys? Okay. And then for my Instagram folks, hang on for a second because I'm going to post the website so you guys can look this up. Okay. So you can see in order for her to put her foot onto that platform right there, she's got to put all her weight into her prosthesis. Right? Think about that. Okay. And granted, when you're first doing this exercise, you do it in parallel bars. Right here, it's for the picture's sake. That's why we're doing it like this, so you guys can see the whole thing. Okay. So this is one of the first exercises I give my patients. Like, yeah, brand new, right out of the box prosthesis. I have my patients start doing this. Granted, they're holding on to the parallel bars. Okay. You guys are seeing it. Great. Thank you. Okay. And I'm going to try to keep this as close as I can so you guys can keep watching while I'm talking. Okay. So when she is doing this exercise, there's a lot of stuff that she has to do. When she's in this part right here in the square up phase, okay, and it's all written here. I explain this all in here. When she's in the square up phase, gosh, the glare, I have her squeeze her bum together, okay? So I have her activate those muscles. I activate the glute muscles that are going to stabilize that pelvis, okay? Once those muscles have been squeezed and they're activated, then I have the person slowly lift up their leg here. And all the while, like I said, they're holding on to the parallel bars. I want you holding on to the parallel bars. And then when I'm also trying to notice when the person lifts up their leg, I'm looking to see what the amputated side is doing. Are they popping their hip out to the side, or are they keeping it nice in line the way my model Robin here is doing? Do you guys see that? So there's a lot of little details that if you do this exercise correctly, you're going to work on a lot of things. You're going to work on the glute strength, the pelvic strength, pelvic stability, and trusting that prosthesis. Now, the first few times when my patients do this exercise, the natural instinct is to quickly like put that foot up onto the box or whatever it is that we're using, right? Because they want to put the weight onto the sound limb, right? And I have them slow it down. I have them do it a couple of times, and then I say, okay, now it's time for you to slow it down. Okay? Because when you slow down the movement of lifting your foot up onto that box step, you're having to put more time and spend more time into that prosthetic side. So do you guys see that? Is that kind of making sense? Can you guys just give me like a thumbs up? Like, yeah, makes sense. You're on the right. We get it. Like, give me some sort of like, because I can't see you guys, so I can't tell if you guys are like if this is good or not. So do you guys see that? Let me check over on my Instagram. Hey, RoboCop leg, we got Michelle on board as well. Rick, I'm definitely going to address that question right there. Okay. Monique, it looks like it's a hard exercise to do. Thank you guys for responding. Okay. Yes. And it looks incredibly intimidating. But it's making sense, right? And again, you don't start this exercise the way Robin is doing it. Robin's an athlete. She's a rock star. So, that's why for the particular pictures in this book, she's able to do it without hanging on to parallel bars. Okay. But you start holding on to parallel bars, or if you're at home, okay, your kitchen counter and the kitchen island with a chair behind you for safety. Shirley says that's what I bet therapy. Yeah. It's a very exercise. And guys, if you go and kind of look through the rest of your exercises, if you have my book or if you have the video exercises, because I have all of these are 100 videos of exercises, right? If you look at that and you just kind of look at the form of how I make you guys do it and your therapist is making you do it, you're tricking the brain by putting weight into the prosthesis, and you're doing it over and over and over and over. And you're doing it with your leg in different positions, right? Because when Steve and I actually, Steve, my physical therapist that I talked to you guys about earlier, he and I were having a big old conversation last Saturday, and we're talking about like, training with our patients, we can't just train them in one position. We got to train them in several different positions because that's how you move in life, right? So when it comes to doing these exercises, right, and getting that trust into the prosthesis, you're doing different variations of this. Okay, different variations of this. And this book is chock full of them. Okay, so again, yeah, I wrote the book, so of course I'm going to be promoting it. This is a resource that you guys can use in your own home, and you can also take with you to physical therapy. Okay, so Jim, I would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, take this to your therapist. Take this to your therapist, right? So I told you guys that there was one exercise that I use as a litmus test, like, okay, my patient is now ready to get off the walker or lose the cane. It's this one. So I told you when you first start doing this exercise, okay, and guys, this is like my PT cheat sheet secrets here. Like, this is like, company secret right here, right? Every therapist has their way of kind of like determining when's that sweet spot that the person's ready to progress. This is my secret right here. Okay. You start off by holding on the parallel bars. Okay. As the person gets stronger, right, they will let go of the arm. They will let go of the arm that is next to the same side as the prosthesis, right? And you'll use this arm. Okay. Once they get strong that way, we take them to the other arm. So there's various levels of support. Once my patient is able to do this without holding on to anything, and they're doing it well, not like, right? That they're doing this well, that's how they know they are ready. Okay. And it takes time. It takes time because I remember the last patient I had, and he was actually a below the knee patient. And I knew for him, based on his history, based on the condition he was in, I was like, okay, and I told him, I was like, you are going to be able to eventually walk without a cane. I know that you eventually are going to be able to walk without a cane. And he says, when? And I said, well, it takes time. There's how. He goes, when? So I told him, when you can do this exercise 5 times without holding on to anything, without losing your balance, that means that you are ready to walk without a cane. And it's not because he's only doing this exercise, guys. Okay. He's doing all the other exercises that I've given him in this book. And he's also doing, guys, I'm giving you all my secrets tonight. I'm giving you guys all my secrets tonight. I hope you guys are clicking on that QR code because I'm giving you all the secrets tonight. Okay. He's not only doing that step up exercise, right? He's also, my patients are also doing the square up, the weight shifting in the anterior, forward and backward, weight shifting diagonal, exercise. They're doing the retro tandem walking, forward tandem walking. They're doing like all the exercises that I start them off with, they will be doing without having to hold on to anything. And these are for my guys that are going to be progressing without a cane, without a walker, right? But I use similar, that's how I use the testing. But that step up, that's my key one right there. That is the key one that I've noticed over 23 years of working with amputees, that when my amputee, whether it's an above the knee or below the knee, is able to do that exercise 5 times without holding on to anything, it means they're ready to start walking without a cane. Okay? Because that means that their pelvic is nice and strong and stable. It means they're trusting their prosthesis and they're not afraid to trust that prosthesis. And I can start then working and pushing them to walk without a cane. Okay. So Jim, in your case, okay, you're using a walker. And if your goal is to progress to a cane, okay, you need to be able to do that step up exercise, holding on with the one hand opposite your amputated leg. So let me clarify that for you. Jim, if you don't mind, can you just jog my memory? Are you a left or a right amputee? Left-sided or right-sided amputee? Left-sided or right-sided amputee? I'm looking to see. And there's another exercise I want to show you guys. Jim, are you still there? Left. Okay. So Jim, if you are an amputee on the left, this is my left. When you can do that step up exercise in the parallel bars, just holding on with your right hand, that means that you are potentially, and I have to say potentially because I'm not your therapist, I'm not looking at you in front of me, disclaimer, 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 potentially ready to start walking with a cane. But remember, Jim, if you're a left amputee and you're holding onto the parallel bar with your right hand, you have to do that step up in a smooth, controlled, slow motion. Right? And guys, you can kind of try this safely, be safe, but you can try it in the parallel bars. Like try to, because sometimes my patients, they'll be like, oh, the step up with my 2 hands. Yeah, that's easy. That's, and I'll take away a hand and they're like, oh, that just got a whole level harder. Okay. So you have to work your way up slowly into being able to do something like that step up by yourself without a hand or with less hand support. But it is possible, guys. It's possible. And it's actually, I tell people, it's not rocket science in the sense that it's a very well laid out protocol. Okay. It's a strengthening protocol. And it's something that all physical therapists do. We do this for all of our patients. Okay. We have strengthening protocols that we follow, and we have a way to get those muscles nice and strong. Okay. So yes, it is capable to improve your mobility status, and it does take work. The question is, you got to work smarter, not harder. You guys, I just picked up that saying the other day, work smarter, not harder. Okay. So if you're constantly doing strengthening exercises, that is great. And there is a lot of value in that. You have to strengthen those muscles, but then you have to teach those muscles what to do. You have to teach them what to do again. Okay. And when you're doing something like that step up exercise that I just showed you guys, you are strengthening the muscle. Oh yeah. No, don't get me wrong. There's strengthening going on, but you're teaching that muscle what to do. You're teaching that muscle to activate, to support and stabilize your pelvis. And you're teaching your muscles how to stay on the prosthesis. Guys, thank you again for scanning the QR codes. I appreciate that. Okay. So that's where I would go, Jim. And the thing, here's another, all the secrets tonight, guys. I'm giving you all the secrets tonight, all the secrets. Here's the other thing, and I do this all the time. Sometimes, right, I will have a patient that is ready to go to the next level, right? They are ready to perhaps go from a walker to a cane to no cane. But then when we start working on the next level, I'm like, something's not right. Something's not right. And you can't pinpoint. And that happens to us as clinicians sometimes as well. I take them back to square up. I take them back here. And we start again. Okay. And inevitably, somewhere along the way, right? And I've done this. Those of you who have been my patients and you've been to my clinic or you've been to one of my conferences and I've worked with you, whatever, you know that I have a very methodical way of doing these protocols because it allows me to see where's the missing piece, where's it right there. Okay. So that's another thing you can do, Jim, is go back to your physical therapist and say, let's start with the square up and take your time going through the square up, going through the side to side weight shift, the forward backward weight shift, and the diagonal. Take your time there and just see, am I able to do this confidently? Am I wavering? Am I wibbly wobbly? Is my heart rate getting faster when I try doing some of these things? Because it may mean that you need to go back to that particular skill and work it again and get it stronger. Okay. And guys, like I said, this lovely young lady right here, I mean, you can tell she's a rock star. She's a runner. She's an incredible athlete. When she first came to see me, she was doing great. She was walking independently and she wanted to learn how to run. But there were certain things that she's like, I don't understand why I'm not able to progress with my running. And I had her back doing those exercises, those foundation exercises to square up the weight shifts. And we found little discrepancies. And we realized, okay, yes, you're walking amazingly, but if you want to take it, her next level was running. That was her next level. If you want to take it to that next level, you've got to be 110% confident on your prosthetic side. Okay. And these were the exercises that we worked from on that. Yeah. So Jim, I hope that this kind of gives you something, because I'm so excited that you have a physical therapist. I'm so excited that you have this book, because you have the formula that you need to keep moving forward. Okay. And again, and I say this all the time, guys, and I truly am sincere about it. If you feel that your physical therapist would like to ask me questions, they are more than welcome to reach out to me. And I've had several physical therapists throughout the years that they saw me on the show or whatever, and they're great therapists, but perhaps they don't have a lot of experience specifically with amputees. And I am more than happy to do a clinician to clinician call and answer any questions that they may have. Okay, truly, sincerely. And you guys have the ability to give them my contact information. Okay, and you have my permission to do so. Okay. Let's move on. I know we've had a lot of comments. Let me take a peek real quick on Instagram. Can you buy this on Amazon? No, unfortunately, you cannot, Monique. Amazon is actually not very easy to sell on, I've discovered, and I would have to increase the price even more if I sold it on Amazon. Printing is very expensive. That's the unfortunate part about printing. So unfortunately, I'm not able to sell this on Amazon, but I promised you guys on Instagram I would put because I know you guys cannot necessarily see things. Hang on. There. And I'm going to post it also in this chat, because I know some of you are watching me through your phones, so you can't necessarily do the QR code. There. Okay. So I posted the link. So like I said, guys, this program, I've been using it on all of my patients. Many of you across the United States and even internationally, I've had several folks internationally order the books and order the program. There's 150 exercise videos for above the knee and below the knee amputee. It covers literally head to toe. It covers you from head to toe for strengthening arms, legs, core, balance, flexibility. It takes you from the beginning all the way through returning to higher level sports activities. Okay. The best way to use this program is to take it to your physical therapist. That is the best way. And there's 2 books, right? There's the 2 books I showed you. That is the best way to make this program work for you. Many of you have used it on your own as a fitness program, but if you are working with a PT, if you have never worked with a PT because you can't find someone who's a specialist in your area, get this program. and take it to that physical therapist, and they will be able to help you pick out the exercises that are appropriate for you and then progress you through them. Okay. So, hey there, Harsh. There's another one of my OG viewers right there. All right. There was a question on Instagram that I want to kind of touch upon. Great, Monique. Good. No. Glad. And guys, if you have any questions, please don't be shy about asking. Okay. Rick asks, also learn how to fall if you're a new amputee. Yes. So that's definitely one of those skills. And I find that there's a lot of PTs out there that are very, nervous about practicing that skill if they don't have experience working with amputees. The learning how to fall, and more importantly, how to get up. For me, it all starts with, let's try to prevent the fall in the first place. But, realistically speaking, at some point in your life as an amputee, you're going to have a fall. At some point in my life, I've had falls. What am I saying? Right? It's just, falls happen. We should make that a shirt. Falls happen. Right? So it's learning how to protect yourself, and then also learning how to get yourself safely back up again. Ashley saying, stomp the cockroach, one of my best favorites. Yes. And guys, yeah, I am known for the stomp the cockroach exercise, and it's in here. Yeah. Because I'm in Florida and we have cockroaches, and they are the size of King Kong, and they fly. Yeah. So we have a special exercise just for the Florida cockroaches, and we've called it 1, 2, 3 cockroach. Yeah. I know. Just one of them things. Let's see. Emily says, I have a pin lock. I went with that because once it's clicked in, I can feel confident that my prosthesis will stay on. However, I still struggle with getting clicked in. Yeah. Could that be contributing to this feel so heavy above and beyond its actual weight when I try to take steps? Not necessarily. I do agree with you. Sometimes pin locks can be a pain in the bum. I have spent many a frustrated moment trying to get one of my patients clicked into that little pin lock, especially if they hit the potato chips the night before and they're a little bit on the swollen side, right? So the pin lock, it is wonderful in the sense that, yes, you get that secure feeling that you are clicked in. And it's that secure feeling. That being said, that is not necessarily what's going to make your prosthesis feel heavy. Okay. What makes your prosthesis feel heavy is, again, going back to that sense of proprioception. Okay. The sense of proprioception. Another thing that could be contributing, Emily, is maybe you need a little bit more suspension, right? So yes, and I probably should backtrack on that comment. The pin lock itself is not going to make it feel heavy. If the pin lock is not doing enough, then it might feel heavier. Okay. So it might mean that you need that external sleeve, if that's possible to do that with the lymphedema. Okay. And then the other part is again, if you have any weakness, that's going to contribute to the prosthesis feeling heavy. Okay. And again, Emily, I know you have a unique case, so it would be perhaps asking the prosthetist if you are a candidate for trying out an external sleeve, something that can help with that suspension a little bit better. Let's see. Ashley says, I need to order a new book. I loaned mine to someone and can't remember who. Ashley, girl. Yes, you do. Donna says, yeah, I need a book. Hey there, Earl from California. Good to have you here. All right. Ashley, thank you so much for saying that. And guys, can I do a special, since we're on the topic of the book tonight and the program, I need a small favor. I have a small ask. Actually, it's kind of a big ask, but I'm hoping you guys will pitch in. If you guys have used my video program, if you have purchased one of my books, I am going to start collecting testimonials. It's something I want to do to kind of show some of the clinics and hospitals the value of this program. That's kind of one of my next big steps with the Cosi Talk Strong Body program, is I want to put it into the hands of the clinicians who are treating amputees. Okay. Because as you guys know, we need more clinicians that are familiar with treating amputee and gaining that knowledge. And one of the ways I'm trying to do that is to have this program into certain clinics and hospitals. Okay. Part of being able to do that is showing these clinics and hospitals, yes, I've had people who've used this program and they have found success with it. So it would be really wonderful for those of you who have purchased the book, who have used the program, if you could please send me an email. And I put my email up there, cosi@cositalks.com. It would be greatly, greatly appreciated. You don't have to do anything yet. Just send me an email and saying, Cosi, I've used your book and videos. I just need to start kind of gathering names and just finding out, doing some of this research as well. For those of you who have not yet used my books or videos, that's okay. Now you know where to look it up if you want to. And you can also use my email to send me your questions. So it's a free for all in that regard. All right. We got Chuck saying, what can you tell me about a hybrid above knee suction system with lanyard? I don't want to lose my leg while walking. Kevin Carroll says it will stop pistoning, turning, and it won't fall off. Okay. I don't usually see the combination of suction with the lanyard. That's not usually the combination I see, but certainly it can be done. If Kevin Carroll is telling you to do it, then do it. Kevin Carroll is probably the best prosthetist one of the best prosthetists in the United States. I like to joke around that he's one of those people that whatever he says needs to be written on stone tablets. Okay. Phenomenal prosthetist right there. Okay. So if he is telling you that using a hybrid suction system with a lanyard is going to give you the best control, then I would follow his advice. Okay. And yes, with the pistoning, again, the pistoning is that movement where your limb is going in and out of the socket. Okay. It can be a very dramatic movement or it can be a very subtle movement. Usually you can tell because the end of the residual limb, that skin is looking rough. Like it looks red. It looks like there's a hickey on the bottom. That's usually like the dead giveaway right there, that you have some pistoning going on, and you'll feel it. Like, most amputees can start to feel like, yeah, I feel like I'm kind of bouncing in and out of the socket because you're pistoning. Okay. So that obviously means that the socket is not suspended correctly. Okay. And you can correct that with good suction system. And then the lanyard as an extra insurance process, right? Typically, like I said, Chuck, I don't see them both put together. Okay. But like I said, this is where I would refer back to the experience of Kevin Carroll. So if he's telling you to use both, use both. If he's telling you just to use the suction, use the suction. Do whatever he tells you to do. Let's see. Michael O says, any tips on how to walk outside, especially on uneven ground? I walk without a cane inside my house without a cane, but once I walk outside, the ground is uneven and I tend to freeze up. Okay, so Michael, this is again this transition, right? And I have this a lot with my patients. A lot of times, like we'll get them moving and grooving, right? Walking on even ground, okay? And then we take them to uneven ground and everything just kind of goes like, woo, backfires there. Okay. Sometimes with my patients, if I've been working with my patients, then I know then I've been doing all the foundational gait exercises and things like that. And it's usually just a matter of practice for them and practicing in a safe way. Like I'm there with them, guarding them, or I teach their family member how to practice with them at home. However, since I don't know your case and I don't know what therapy you've done, again, it could be that you need to go back to some of these early foundational steps that we mentioned earlier, right? The weight shifting backward and forward, side to side, diagonal patterns, okay? To kind of fine tune and put the polish on the strength and also the motor control, how your body controls the movement. Okay. So again, Michael, going back to some of those foundational exercises, the other thing you might want to do, okay, is walking on different level surfaces. So for example, in your home, if you have tile and then carpeting, right? Having yourself walk back and forth between those two different surfaces. And sometimes I will do that. Sometimes instead of just taking a person from level out to grass, I do the transitional surfaces, because just even seeing your brain visualizing a different surface can throw you off. Okay. So Michael, if you've done the foundational exercises, you've done good work there, you've done all that kind of training, then sometimes what it might mean is that you just need practice. Okay. So guys, how do I progress my patients? Okay. I told you about some of these things that we do, like the sidestepping, the crossover exercises. Okay. A lot of these high level balance exercises, I start my patients doing these exercises in the parallel bars. Right? These exercises look pretty intimidating, right? They look a little intimidating. You're like, how in the world am I going to be able to do that? The model's doing it without holding on to anything. I start all of these exercises with my patients in the parallel bars and holding on with two hands. And then we slowly progress them. We let go of one hand, then we let go of the other, then we switch things around a bit, right? So that when it's time to go outside on uneven ground, they have that solid foundation. Okay. And then I might do some of these exercises on the grass. Okay. So again, I might start if my patient's inside, they're doing all these high balance exercises and they're doing it without holding on to anything and they're moving and grooving and da da da. Then what I'll do is I'll take them out to the grass and I'll give them hand support. And we'll do sidestepping. And we'll start those exercises on the grass again and building that foundation there. Okay. So, Michael, again, physical therapist in that regard. And again, I'm in this profession. I love my profession. I love what we do. It's academically super stimulating. Like, I never get bored learning about my profession and what I can do for patients. Okay. And obviously, the whole rewarding part of like, ooh, let's give someone back their independence and mobility. Right. But truly, working with a physical therapist, we can help suss out what it is that's missing and preventing you from getting out there and getting into that grass. Okay. So if you've done the hard part, you've already gotten yourself walking on even ground without a cane. You've done the bulk of the hard work. It could be that you just need to backtrack a little bit and plug in some of those foundational holes. And you need to be taught how to progress yourself outside in the grass. Does that make sense? Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Ashley says, I'm just over 2 weeks from a revision. If using the figure 8 wrap, is it okay to wrap up to my knee to help get the last of the swelling down? The swelling just seems to be trapped just below the back of the knee. Yes. Yes, Ashley. And guys, if there is a poster child here for progressing their exercise, progressing their mobility, working with the physical therapist, it's Ashley right there. Ashley right there. And then Harsh, he's another one right there. And Johnny V. All of my OG viewers, they can tell you, they can be the ones to tell you right there how when you're working and doing things and following these protocols and working with the therapist, how your mobility level jumps another level. Wait a second, Ashley, revision. What happened? Fill me in. Why did you need, well, if you want to share it here, if you want to send me a private message, what happened, girl? But yes, using the figure 8 wrap, it's a great tool for helping with that inflammation, and you can extend it even up into your thigh, just making sure you're protecting the back of your knee so it doesn't get irritated. But yeah, because I can guarantee you're going to have swelling in your thigh, and you want to push all that fluid up to the lymph nodes in the groin area so that it can get that fluid out of there. Hey there, Bill. All right. Ashley says, should I increase the tightness a little each day to help as well? Be careful with that, Ashley. And I know you're very careful and you're very good. What you want to focus on is that it should be more snug at the bottom and gradually easing up. Okay. So it should be more snug at the bottom and gradually easing up on the tightness of that bandage. If you just do it tight, you're creating a tourniquet effect, and we don't want that. We really don't want that. Okay. And again, I know you have a good PT, so I know that they can review this with you. Okay. And as you see, and again, it should not hurt. And this goes for whether you're a revision or whether you're a brand new amputee. When I worked in the hospitals and I was seeing patients in the recovery room or right after their surgery the next day, we would start implementing some gentle compression, usually with like a 2B grip sock. Okay. But we didn't want to be too aggressive. We don't want it to be too aggressive. When you're doing compression therapy there to help with inflammation, you should be able to feel the compression, but it shouldn't be painful. Okay. You want it to be gentle. Okay. Because that's just how it's supposed to be. Okay, so Emily says, I'm not sure if a sleeve would be feasible because my prosthesis is attached to a CAFO setup. Oof, yeah, okay. Okay, Emily, I think a lot of it is also because you do have quite a few components that you're wearing. I remember you telling me you had a Satch foot. And again, a lot of it is continuing to work on your strength, working on those glute muscles, working on the core, working on your other leg. Okay. Talking to your prosthetist and saying, what componentry can be lightened up? Okay. Is there a way to lighten the load with the componentry that you're wearing? And just see where they can even just take off a few ounces here and there, if there's any way to do that. Okay. All right. Chuck says it's new about 2 months. Okay. So it's new. Okay. So, okay. So yeah, if you're new to wearing that leg, Chuck, and again, and I don't know if you mean it's new about 2 months, meaning you're new to wearing a prosthesis in general or this particular leg that you're wearing, or both. But yes, when it comes to wearing a prosthesis and it's relatively new, there's still a lot of troubleshooting, whether it's your first prosthesis or whether it's your sixth prosthesis, right? There's a lot of troubleshooting involved because as you wear the leg, as you become more active, that limb is going to start to shrink and it's going to change how that prosthesis fits. So it can cause that pistoning. If you're losing volume on that limb, pistoning is one of the things that can start to happen. So having to stay on top of it and modifying how that socket fits by adding socks when needed. Okay. Marianne says, grass is terrible for me. It is hard. Robert says, rough terrain was my biggest challenge, but worked hard and now can go up and down dirt hills and rough terrain. And again, guys, I find over, and I sound like a broken record, over and over and over again, if you build that strong foundation, that solid foundation, it's not to say rough terrain will be easy, right? But it's really a lot of following very similar protocol. Okay, when you transition to rough terrain. Okay. And I think it's a fantastic skill to practice. Not that because you're going to be walking around grass all the time, but if you can walk around grass, then you'll be that much more confident when you're walking on level ground. See, Pastor David says walking on soft or uneven ground is challenging, but doable, not always comfortable. Eek. Yeah. And there's a controlled chaos method, a way of doing it. Okay. Again, when I've worked with patients, I take them everywhere. I take them outside in the parking lot. I take them on ramps. I take them on curbs. I take them on asphalt. I'll take them out in the road. On some cases, I have patients who come in from out of town and I really work them hard and I'll take them out to the conservation parks. We have one conservation park here that's incredible. And talk about walking on uneven terrain. We even have a couple of gators that you can try to outrun. Not joking. Let's see. Christy says, grass, uneven little hills I hate make me unsteady. And again, and I'm thinking right now of something that, again, when Steve and I, like the guy I mentioned earlier, who's a phenomenal PT, we had a 7.5-hour study session last Saturday. Not kidding. It was crazy. We talked about everything under the sun about amputee care. So a lot of stuff that is coming up there. But, it's Christy, on your comment, when you're saying that little hills and it makes you unsteady and you just don't like it, part of teaching a person how to walk again with the prosthesis, it's teaching them how to tell the prosthesis what to do. And Steve said that, and I'm stealing that from Steve. So Steve, I'm stealing that phrase from you. He would say, your patient needs to learn how to tell that prosthesis what to do, whether they're telling the computer in their microprocessor knee what to do, or they're telling the foot in the below the knee amputee prosthesis what to do. The patient has to know what to tell the prosthesis to do. And that's when they start to get confident, when they see that they know how to make that prosthesis move. And he brought up a great analogy, like with a car, right? You sit in a car and you give the keys to a 15-year-old who's never driven a car before, right? Disaster happens. And it's not because there's nothing wrong with the car. The car's fine, right? It's the person driving it, right? But you teach that kid, and I'm probably using that analogy because I've got 3 teenagers right now, eek. You teach the kid how to drive the car and they are telling the car what to do, and the car will do whatever it is that you tell it to do. Okay. So when it comes to learning how to walk on grass, walk on hills, walk on water, still haven't figured that one out. Okay. You got to learn how to tell the prosthesis what to do. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what you're learning to do. All right. Jerry Ann says, I love your book and I use it almost every day. Would love one for bilaterals. I know it costs a lot, but maybe one day. Yes, I know, Jerry Ann. And honestly, I launched the book and the video series. It's going to be, holy cow, 4 years in November. 4 years in November since I launched Cosi Talk Strong Body. And when I did it all by myself. No, not all by myself. I had a wonderful team helping me, but I financed the whole thing myself. It took me almost 3 years to complete the project. 3 years. 3 years, right? To make all those videos, publish the 2 books, editing, crazy, right? And I had an amazing, amazing, amazing team. And it took me 3 years. And the only reason I don't have one for bilaterals is I ran out of a budget. I ran out of money. So point blank, showing you guys my cards there. Okay. But it truly is like, it's one of those things where I want to see that program grow. I'm adding more to it. And like I said, my goal is to put this into the hands of clinicians as well as those of you who are amputees. Okay, from both sides. Okay, and fill in those gaps. Robin, girlfriend, you should have been here earlier. I was showing off your amazing moves from this book. Your ears must have been burning there, Robin. And I can't wait to hear about your trip. And we need to get caught up. We seriously need to get caught up, Robin. Hey there, Pat. Pat says, as an above the knee 8 years out, I highly recommend you review. Oh, thank you for the Strong Body program and book, along with receiving PT from an individual that specializes in amputees. If amputee specialists are not available, sharing the book with your PT is the next best choice. Makes a world of difference. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And again, I'm just going to put my email up there. I've got a lot of stuff cooking in the background. Those of you who have used the book, have used the videos, if you can just send a quick email that says, I used your book or I used your videos. And at some point, someone from my team is going to reach out and contact you. But yeah, we've got over 6.5 million amputees living in the United States. And all those 6.5 million amputees need some form of fitness program, whether it's in the form of a rehabilitation program where they're using this during their rehabilitation process or in maintaining their fitness, lifelong fitness. Okay. So that is my little pebble in a pond that I'm trying to throw out there. Emily says, I feel like I'm figuring out this is new normal is a lot on my own. Yeah. And again, Emily, the process of working and finding your new normal after something like amputation or with a disability, I feel like that kind of evolves sometimes. I don't have a disability like an amputation. I have, a cancer diagnosis for some of you who may not be aware. So finding that new normal after something like amputation and cancer is something that changes. I know that it's been changing for me. It's going to be 10 years in December since I was diagnosed. And that's something that has continued to change for me. What is my normal as an as a cancer patient? And Emily, whether you are an amputee, whether you are a cancer patient, whether you are a spinal cord injury patient, whether you have a little bit of many things, okay, don't give up. Don't give up. God's not done with you yet. Okay. There's always something that can be improved upon. And even if it's just one tiny small thing, okay, it's in your control to improve that one small thing. Okay. I once had a patient that, he was actually one of the last pediatric patients that I had. I don't get the chance to work with kids as much as I used to at the beginning of my career. I had one pediatric patient, and he was 14 years old, and he had been diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is an incredibly aggressive, incurable brain cancer. And he knew that he was going to die. And it was an incredibly difficult case. And unfortunately, they had done a surgery to try to remove the tumor, and he ended up having a stroke, which left him bedbound. So from one day to the next, this poor young man, this 14-year-old boy, was being faced with a terminal illness, and then he lost the ability to move from one day to the next, and he was bedbound. And I was working with him from a physical therapy standpoint. And the only thing he could do was move his big toe. That was the only movement he had. And you could tell that even though he couldn't move, he couldn't communicate. You could just see the frustration on this poor kid's face. And through words and things like that, and he just said, I can't control anything in my life. And I built a little rapport with this young man, and I said, okay, well, and as a therapist, I'm just sitting there and, my head in my hands going, how can I help this kid? Like, what do you say to a kid, right? What do you say to a kid that has this kind of terminal illness and lost the ability to do anything for himself on top of that, right? So the only thing we came up with is wiggle your big toe. That's the only thing you can do. Then wiggle your big toe. And he just looked at me like all he could do was just kind of look at me with that, like, are you kidding me, lady? And I go, wiggle your big toe. Anytime you look at your toe, wiggle that big toe. And I left there that day and I'm just like, they don't teach you how to handle this kind of stuff in PT school. There's no manual for that. So I go in the following week and I see him and his mom just says he has something to show you. So we went back in and he was wiggling his big toe and then he started wiggling his other toes. And that was a victory right there. So that was the only thing he could control about his body. And it led to the ability to start wiggling his other toes. And it seems strange to think that we were celebrating something so small as wiggling your toes when, in the face of this cancer diagnosis, right? But that was his victory. That was one thing that he could keep under control. And that was one thing he could make a decision for himself to do. Okay. So for those of you out there right now who are stuck, whether you feel like you're plateaued, whether you feel like you're just not getting anywhere, find out what is that wiggle toe moment. Whatever it is that you have under your control that you can do it and start there. I'd love to hear from you guys right now because, I'm still, as you can see, I'm still struggling with how to, right? Okay. All right, let's go back to some of these comments. Emily says, I've asked multiple times and he says no. Again, Emily, second opinion, and see what they say. Mark says, with the appropriate foot, even uneven ground is not an issue for me. Yeah, and a lot of it is also when you're looking at uneven ground, if you're somebody who does a lot of work on uneven ground, looking into a foot, for example, like the hydraulic foot is a great option because it helps accommodate more to that uneven ground. Robert says, I find mental exercises is just as important as physical exercises as you progress. Yeah. And Emily says, some with PT, they either have amputee experience or experience with patients with spina bifida, usually not both. No. And it would be very rare to find someone who specializes in both, right? Because those are very polar opposite disabilities, right? Spina bifida is something you normally see much more so in the pediatric population, right? Or you might see with physical therapists who work with paraplegics and quadriplegics, and amputees, completely different kind of specialist. There are some PTs, myself included, that, I've had experience with spina bifida and amputees. But Emily, even I would tell you, my strength lies more with the amputee side of it. Okay. It is not impossible, Emily. It is not impossible to find a therapist who has experience working with complicated cases. Okay. And, so again, if you're able to get a second opinion, Emily, I don't know if you have looking in your area to see if there is a hospital that has a spinal cord injury program. And in some ways, I think that might be the avenue you might want to take, is seeking out a physical therapist who specializes more on the spinal cord injury side of that spectrum. When it comes to the prosthesis, it sounds like, okay, if your prosthetist has already done everything that they can for you from a prosthetic standpoint, if you're working with that lymphedema specialist to keep that lymphedema, under control, right? It sounds like the spinal cord injury therapist right now might be the better person to advise you. Just a thought right there. Okay. Pat says, walking on a sloped terrain with the prosthetic on the high side has always been tough for me. Sloped terrain with the prosthetic on, yeah. The other way around works fine. Got to adapt your gait to the terrain. Yes. And then again, Pat, for someone like yourself, putting the fine tuning touches, right? Talking to your prosthetist, and you probably know a lot of this already, Pat, but just really getting into the inner workings of how your microprocessor knee works. Right? Is it something that you have to load the toe? Is it something that you have to put your hip back into extension to get that knee to break? So for things like on the slope terrain, what you just mentioned right there, right? And fine tuning that and seeing if you can crack the code there. Let's see. Sean says, escalators are terrifying, but once you practice getting off and on them, you will learn to balance better. Yeah. Oh yeah. Escalators, they're terrifying even when you have two legs. Right? I've gotten caught on my fair share amount of escalators myself. But yes, practice. Getting the foundation and then practice. That once you start getting on and off escalators, your balance will improve. Yeah. Christy says, telling the prosthetics what to do as well as the knee surgery leg and your knee what to do. Yeah, absolutely. Robert says, I find journaling helps. So when I look back just 3 months where I've just accomplished something big and now see how much more I can do now. I also captured the setbacks, but now I get encouraged as I look forward to the future and what great things I'll do tomorrow. Beautifully said right there. And I'm going to actually, Robert sent this in and I really want to kind of touch upon this one. Ham Sandwich says, I love this story. My goodness, what a great story to share. Yeah, that was probably, if I, you think about the top most impactful cases in my life, in my career, that young man blew me away. And it came on here's the real, it came on the heels of my own cancer diagnosis. So I had literally just finished chemotherapy, the last of my surgeries. My blood counts were finally clear for me to go see patients again, because I had basically spent an entire year without being able to work because of the chemotherapy and everything like that. And my hair was just like, I had like a little crew cut. Not a good look for me, by the way. So I had like little crew cut hair, and I get a phone call about this patient. And I remember just like saying, okay, like literally this is the second patient I'm seeing coming back from my own cancer, and it's a kid with glioblastoma. And it's just like, okay, God is putting this case in front of me. And, unfortunately he did, he succumbed to that cancer, and it was very, tragic, to see the family. But, just even those little lessons that I learned as a therapist, and seeing him learn to wiggle his big toe, right? Yeah. You don't forget that. That one sticks with you. All right. Robin says it takes a lot of repeated exposures to all the different surfaces outside the therapeutic area to build your confidence to walk in the world outside the clinic. But you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Boom. Right there. Mic drop right there. Marianne says, Robert, I journal everything I do as well. Okay, so Emily says, I'm part of the Spina Bifida clinic at the Hershey Medical Center. Okay, so you're at a great place right there. Okay. Oh, and my battery is running low on my computer. I'm going to keep talking. Guys, if I get cut off, if you just see the screen go black, it's because I lost my battery. Oh, and there comes my husband, my knight in shining armor. So he's going to connect it for me. Thank you. Thank you, hubby. Okay. So Jerry Ann says, what is a good way to find a new good physical therapist and prosthetist when moving to another state, like moving to Tennessee? Ooh, Jerry Ann, if you're going to Tennessee, I already got your prosthetist picked out. I already got him picked out for you. Jerry Ann, message me. Here's my email again. And I will connect you to one of my favorite prosthetists. Right there. There is a right. Meet. It doesn't. Guys, if I get like completely cut off, it's because my battery turned off. But my husband is being wonderful, and he's looking for an extension cord for me because I just was not prepared tonight. Bad cozy. So Jerry Ann, yes, I've got you covered for your prosthetist, and then your physical therapist. I have a couple of options for you. Email me, and I'm going to try to connect you. Okay. In terms of finding a good prosthetist in a new area, this is where I say Dr. Google is a wonderful resource for that, okay? Or Dr. Facebook, okay? Going back to your Facebook support groups, guys, and just saying, hey, this is the town I'm in. Do you guys have prosthetists that you recommend? To me, that is the best way to find the right prosthetist and the right physical therapist, is by word of mouth referral. Talk to these people's patients, okay? Thank you. Yes. Yay. Thank you, hubby. Everybody say thank you, hubby. Okay. So, and interviewing them. If you have absolutely no referrals, no resources, you are in the middle of nowhere, you don't know any other amputees around in your area, interview. Interview your prosthetist, interview your physical therapist. Okay. Most of my patients, and since I opened up my private practice here, most of my patients will have some sort of phone consult with me before they commit to making that appointment. Okay. A lot of it is because I am a cash-based practice. So, obviously people are understandably going, well, why am I going to come work with you and you don't accept insurance and what's going on? So they interview me over the phone and we talk a little bit about their case. And I say, yeah, I think I can help you with this, or maybe, or, whatever the case is. But I'm used to being interviewed by my patients. Okay. And most prosthetists the good ones will tell you, yeah, they don't mind if you go in and ask them some questions and then, or, leave a message and have them call you and just explain, this is my case. Do you have experience working with my kind of case? Okay. And start the ball rolling that way. Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Victor says, just got inline seal socket with vac. Now I have a blood blister on my stump. Wound care and surgeon says I can still wear my old socket with suction, no vacuum. What's your thoughts? Oh, Victor, you're putting me in a really tough spot here. Okay. Disclaimer. Everyone is a little different. With my patients, if they have a blister, if they have open skin, I tell them not to wear the socket until it's healed up. Okay. Doubly so if they are diabetics, if they have vascular problems, okay, anything like that. I have run into some really terrible situations where people put their prosthesis on and continue to use their prosthesis with an open wound or with blisters. I actually have a case that I was following about a month ago that the prosthetist did not tell the person to stop wearing their prosthesis, and the blister turned into a tunneling wound. Now, I know that sounds very dramatic, and sounds like I'm being overly dramatic, but again, that's what I tell my patients. Okay. And for me, I think it's better safe than sorry. Okay. Now, have I had the occasional patient who wears their socket while their blister is healing? Yes. I can count the number of times on one hand. And usually it's someone who is a very experienced amputee, a very young amputee who has good, healthy circulation. And they are putting special things on there to protect that area. And they're able to get through their day without making it worse. But even then, they usually end up taking the socket off and waiting for it to heal. So again, Victor, that's just what I tell my patients. And again, I have not laid eyes on you. I haven't laid eyes on a particular wound. So I tend to err more on the conservative side. Because even if you're not using vacuum, okay, if you're using suction, again, you're still pulling on that area. Okay. And if that socket is not fitting perfectly and you have even the littlest amount of movement in that socket and that friction and chafing, it's going to turn that blood blister and it's going to open it up. Okay. And then obviously the next thing you need to do is, once that blister heals, you need to go back to your prosthetist and figure out, okay, why did this happen? Right. And that does sometimes happen with the vacuum. The elevated vacuum is that sometimes the suction can be just a little too aggressive and you can suck a little blister out of it. Okay. Going back to the prosthetist and finding out, why did this happen and how can we prevent it from happening again? Okay. Sorry, Instagram, I've kind of ignored you a little bit and I don't want to do that. All right. Okay, so Janie is asking, can I connect you with a prosthetist in Charlotte, North Carolina? Yes, Janie, I can. Here's my email. I can do you one better. I actually have a fantastic colleague, physical therapist in Charlotte, North Carolina. She's based out of there. And she's incredibly experienced with amputee care. She's phenomenal. And I know that she will know what prosthetist is good in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'll connect you to PT and a prosthetist. So Janie, hopefully you're still on Instagram. I'm sorry I got that message a little late. Send me an email and I will connect you to some people there. Okay. Johnny B says, as a 23-year person with a below the knee amputation at the age of 71. So Johnny, are you 71? You got to tell me what moisturizer you're using. You do not look like you're 71. So you're 71. You've been an amputee for 23 years. Today, I experienced sneezing and put me off balance and falling. It could have been worse as it took me by surprise, but I had a laugh as I recovered from the fall. It just goes to show I'm only human and things happen. Oh, Johnny. I could kind of see that. If it was like one of those like big, loud, my kids call them the old man sneeze where you're just like, rah, that'll throw you off balance. 19 Pop says, Hubster to the rescue. Yeah, I got the best hubby. You guys are like, thank you, hubby. Robert says, I was told never wear my leg if I have a blister, open wounds, because infections are our worst enemy. Yeah. Again, it makes me cringe. And guys, I've had this happen, and I've gotten into not into arguments, but I know I've ruffled feathers with some of my patients that have come in because I've had, off the top of my head, I can name 3 patients easily in the past few years that I've had my practice that they came in, no joke, a bandage that was like seeping, like it was seeping through. And they told me, yeah, I went to my prosthetist office and they just told me to just go ahead and put the socket on top of it. Okay. So yeah, I err on the side of caution, guys. I really do. And it's inconvenient. I'm not taking away from that. It is so inconvenient to have to use crutches or a walker, or most of the time, a lot of times folks have to end up using a wheelchair while they're waiting for the blister to heal. It's so inconvenient. I understand that. But what's more inconvenient is if that wound progresses and then you're really off your feet for a while. And again, I'm just thinking of the person I was consulting last month. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay, so Cindy, and this piggybacks on what we've been discussing for a lot of this evening. Cindy says, Cindy from New York with Starry Zero in my cup. I start with a new PT on October 30th who has started working for my prosthetist. Yay. I want to graduate to know a device. I do at home a lot, and I know there's a work to do to reach this goal. What would you recommend I start, and how should I start training? How should the training go? Again, I am encouraged by the fact that you are working with a physical therapist and that physical therapist works with your prosthetist, because that right there is like gold. That is gold for several reasons. Number one, it's 2 sets of eyes with 2 different kinds of lenses. How a PT looks at a person and how a prosthetist looks at a person are 2 different things, which means when you put the 2 of them together, they're going to catch a lot more things, right? Second thing, if your physical therapist is not very experienced in the prosthetic componentry, the prosthetist is a wonderful guide. Okay. I have many PTs that taught me about amputee care, but when it came to prosthetic componentry, holy smokes, the prosthetist is where I've learned. They are the ones who have really, really taught me a lot, the majority of what I know about prosthetic devices, about alignment, about gait deviations, things like that. So the fact that the 2 of them are working together, bravo right there. And again, Cindy, going back to your physical therapist will hopefully be taking you through those foundation exercises and starting at the beginning with that, okay, and building that strong foundation. Ashley says, I had a spot on the end of my limb that wouldn't heal, a callus for 2+ years. Oof. The revision was chosen after wound care. 2 orthos and my vascular surgeon recommended it. They took 2.5, 3 centimeters off and shortened the outside bone so the 2 bones are similar lengths. That is intense. I had no idea you had all that going on, Ashley. That's a lot right there. Glad you're on the other side of that right now. Okay, Janie asks, actually, Janie, I want to like save this question for next week because it's a really great question and we're kind of running out of time. So Janie asks, I had a bone scan done. Results came back that I have osteoporosis in my left hip and pelvis. Osteoporosis is common in amputees. What types of exercises and stretches do you recommend, suggest for below the knee amputees to help fight or slow down osteoporosis? I take supplements and vitamins to help with bone strength. Thanks, Janie. Okay. So definitely for me, I think osteoporosis is both internal and external, right? You need to address it internally with diet and certain supplementations. And I feel like I'm not qualified enough to comment on all that, but I've been reading so much on some of the advances that we're making there. From the outside, however, that I can comment upon. Okay, so Wolff's Law, right? We've talked about Wolff's Law in the past. Basically, Wolff's Law is what states that when a bone is placed under stress, it's going to stimulate the bone to overturn old bone cells and produce new bone cells. Okay. So the best, and it's good stress, not like we're banging on the bone or anything like that, right? It's good stress that we do when we place weight on the bone. Okay. So as we are starting to learn how to walk as babies, right? And we're toddlers and things like that, and we're putting weight into our joints. Okay. We are stimulating that bone growth. As we strengthen muscles, the pull of the tendon on the bone is stimulating the bone as well as it's building the muscle. Okay. When it comes to an amputee and their prosthesis, there is no stress being put into the bone, right? So if you have a below the knee amputation or above the knee amputation, you are not putting any weight into the end of that bone. You're not supposed to be. Right? That's actually a big no-no. We don't want that because the bone will be damaged. The flip side, right, the catch-22 to that is that because your bone is not being placed under the stress of weight bearing, it's going to start to lose bone density over time. Okay? Unless you have osseointegration, in which case you have the implant going directly into your bone, you're putting weight into that implant and your bone is receiving the stimulus to create new bone. Okay? That aside. So studies have been around for decades now. Okay. These studies became really, really big when I was in physical therapy school and I was learning this, but now it's kind of, just common, one of those commonly accepted things now that with weight training, you can start to rebuild bone. So with an amputation, it can be a little bit tricky because how do you, start that weight training? If you're a below the knee amputee, okay. And again, Cindy, I would work with a therapist because, no, this wasn't Cindy, this was Janie. Janie, I would work with a therapist, okay? And also talking to the doctor to see how far progressed is your osteoporosis because you don't want to be too aggressive and then possibly cause a fracture, okay? But getting into quadruped positioning. So when you're on all fours, why? Because you're putting weight directly into your knee when you're on all fours and you're putting that weight up through the femur. Again, work with the physical therapist, check with your doctor to make sure that you are able to do something like this. Okay. So you want to do that. And then you start putting the weight into that bone and start stimulating that bone right there. Okay. I kind of want to cover this a little bit more in depth next week because it's a great question. Donna, I did not forget your question and you are so sweet to be so patient to wait for me. So Donna asked, what should I be working on to get ready for my leg? It's your first prosthetic leg. Well, first of all, congratulations. That's exciting to now be moving on to that next step in your rehabilitation and recovery process. Okay. So Donna, getting a physical therapist. Okay. Ask your prosthetist. Some prosthetists have physical therapists they work with, some do not, but that's the first place I would start. Ask your prosthetist who they recommend for physical therapy in your area. Okay. And then Donna, some of the leg work might be on you. Terrible pun, and I did not mean to do that. Okay. So it might mean that you might need to go find your physical therapist. Okay. In your area. Donna, I don't know if you feel comfortable telling me this or if you want to email me separately. What town you live in. I don't know everybody in every town, but sometimes we get lucky like we did tonight. We know somebody in Tennessee. We know somebody in Charlotte, North Carolina. If we get lucky and we have somebody in your area that I can connect you with, I am so happy to do that. So if you either want to put in the comment section or email me separately or text me, because I know you texted me your question. You have one that knows nothing. Okay. So again, let's see if where you live, what town you live in, and see if we can recommend someone. The other thing that you can do, Donna, and some people do this and it's worked, introduce your physical therapist to your prosthetist. Okay. Wyoming. We have someone in Wyoming. Chuck, you are from Wyoming. Chuck, I don't know what part of Wyoming you live in, and I know that's a, kind of a big state there. And we're just going to hope we get lucky. Chuck, if you're still on board, let me see if you're on board, Chuck. Chuck from Wyoming. He's here every week. I don't know if he's here right now, if he's still here. We're going to put Chuck on the spot a little bit. Donna, we're going to give Chuck a minute to respond. We're going to give Chuck a minute to respond because he's here every week and he is from Wyoming. So we're going to start there. Second thing you want to do, Donna, is talk to your physical therapist. If you get the vibe that this physical therapist, oh, it's your brother. Oh, okay. Wait, Chuck is your brother? Okay, I'm confused. Help me out, Donna. I'm a little confused. Okay, so going back to it, Donna, going to that physical therapist and having them meet your prosthetist. Okay, and starting there. And then also maybe looking outside your area. So you might have to look over into the next town to see if you can find a physical therapist that has experience working with amputees. Okay. Inpatient rehab hospitals sometimes will have those therapists. So if you kind of look around to see, okay, where are the inpatient rehab hospitals, okay, that are around that could possibly give you some help there. Okay. Obviously I'm too far away for you. I'm in Florida, but there are, again, look outside your area. Look outside. Oh, he is the older brother in the same town. Okay. Looking outside your area, Donna, and let me do some digging. Let me look this up. I'm going to look it up. I'm just going to go do a search on my own and see if there's any kind of a physical therapist with amputee experience anywhere in the Wheatland, Wyoming area. And again, it could be, let's see, Chuck travels to Casper for physical therapy. Unfortunately, Donna's insurance is not accepted by his physical therapist. Okay. Kind of sort of connecting the dots here. Okay. Thank you guys for clarifying. Okay. I'm going to go with out of the box thinking right now, Donna. I'm going to go with out of the box thinking. If your insurance is not accepted by Chuck's physical therapist, okay, ask them if they have a private pay rate. Okay. So a lot of clinics, the majority of physical therapy clinics are insurance-based clinics, meaning they bill your insurance and that's how they get reimbursed for their care. However, many clinics have a private pay option. It's perfectly legal. Okay. So Donna, ask them, if you were to pay them cash, what would that rate be? And again, I'm thinking outside the box, guys. I think outside the box all the time. Okay. If that person is an amputee specialist, it will be worth that investment into your health. Even if you cannot go as often. Okay. I've had some patients that they only come see me once a week. And then as they progress, they come to see me once a month. Okay. But they are making progress. Okay. So Donna, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to tell you, think outside the box. Okay. If you know of a physical therapist that is relatively close or that you can travel to and you can get to, even if it's just once a week, once every 2 weeks, okay? And they are willing to allow you to do private pay. Okay, now keeping in mind, if you're private paying, that means they're seeing you one on one. So I do want to make that case for you. If you are paying out of pocket, it should be one on one therapy, which means it will also be more concentrated therapy for you. Okay, find out what that rate is and see if that's something that you can work into your budget, even if you can only go a little bit. Okay. And then Donna, here's what I want you to do. I have a couple of other things. I want you to please email me. Okay, Donna? Can you give me a thumbs up? Donna, I want you to email me because there's a couple of other things I can do to help you out with something like that. Okay. Yes? Don't leave me hanging, Donna. Don't leave me hanging. All right, Donna, I'm going to look for an email from you tomorrow. Okay? Email me tomorrow. Okay. Robert asks, so how do we answer folks on the street when asked what we are doing to improve? The person asked, I think they're trying to do their own recovery and looking for answers. Okay, Donna, thank you. All right. So Robert, this was a really, thoughtful question that he sent me. And I'm going to read the text that you sent because there's a little more detail. You said, Robert says, I ran into the situation on Monday. I saw another amputee. She asked about my leg, which was nice, but then started to question me on how I was able to walk so smoothly. What did my therapist and my prosthetist say to do in terms of workouts and stretches? She wanted me to tell her the secrets without going to them herself. My answer was that we are all different, and what works for me may not work for you. So you have to see them in person so they can target your needs. Is that the right approach, or should I have said what worked for me, as she may not have insurance? Robert, you did the perfect thing. Like, I could not have answered that better myself. And it really is true, guys. And despite the fact that, obviously this show is based on answering your questions, right? You all over the years have seen that there are certain questions that I can give very specific answers to, and there are certain questions that it's a very broad answer. It's a very broad answer. And it's exactly that. The needs of one person are going to be so completely different from the needs of the other person and getting them to their goals. Okay. So when someone is asking you, well, what did you do? What's your secret? How did you get to walking without a cane? You can give generalized responses, and it boils down to, I put the work into it. Right? You got to put the work into it, and then you have to have that team helping you. Okay. Whether it's the physical therapist and the prosthetist, you need that team behind you to, determine this is where you're lacking. This is where your deficiency is, whether it's in your strength or your balance or your proprioception or your socket fit. There's a lot of things that come into play to make you successful as a prosthetic user, as an amputee. And it's not just one thing. Okay. And, sometimes you might find like the person here's another thing that happens. Like when you see someone who's lost a lot of weight, right? A lot of times people are like, what's your secret? How did you lose the weight? Because they're looking for that quick fix. And sometimes people are just looking for that quick fix. What's the one thing I need to do to lose weight? What's the one thing I need to do to be able to walk by myself without using a cane or a walker? And at the end of the day, guys, it's not just one thing. There's no quick fix, right? Those of you who have done it, been there, done that, gotten the cool amputee humorous t-shirt, right? You have to put a lot of work into it. It's a lot of work that goes into it on your part, work that goes into it from your clinician's part as well. And sometimes that's what that person needs to hear. They need to hear, yeah, it's not a quick fix. And if the person doesn't have insurance, there are ways around that, guys. Okay, I've worked with a lot of people in my own practice that did not have insurance. It's the point where you say, this is the priority right now for me, is to get my mobility back and do what it is I need to do to make that happen. Full stop. Full stop. Okay. Okay, good, Janie. I'm glad you were there to hear that. Good. So Janie, okay, so you guys have my email. Everybody has my email. Everybody should have my email by now. Let's see. Sean says, good night, Cozy, and everybody. Early work day tomorrow. God bless. God bless you too, Sean. Thank you. And guys, with that, I'm also going to say good night because I still hear my son out there studying for his test tomorrow. So I'm going to go and jump in and help him with those final math problems and get that young man off to bed so he can get a good night's sleep. But guys, as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your lives this evening. I have some very exciting news to share for next week. And yes, I'm going to leave you on that cliffhanger. Oh, Mark, I mean, I'm sorry, you're not a real amputee unless you have a really cool amputee humor t-shirt. Don't come for me, guys, but come on, right? Right? Someone needs to clue Mark in here. You need the shirt. If you know, you know. You need the shirt. All right, we're going to hook you up at some point, Mark, with the cool, funny t-shirts. All right, guys. In the meantime, I got some geometry honors to go help my young man with, and I will see you guys next week. Same bat time,